清大德上听，Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Nammo sadanto suchedoye hulahudi sammyao samputoshe. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。The unsurpassed, deep, profound, subtle, wonderful Dharma in hundreds of thousands of millions of eons is difficult to encounter. Now that I've come to receive and hold it within my sight and hearing, I vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning. Venerable Master and Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. It is the 9th of August, and we're here in Berkeley, California. Saturday night, we're going to be looking at the 10 Grounds chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Flower Garland Sutra, and I'd like to invite you please to join me in chanting the name of the sutra and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, which you'll find right here on the cover. And all right, good. Let's do that now. We chant in Chinese, but the meaning is up above, and if Chinese is a new language for you, then you can follow along with the Romanized character sounds down below the Chinese characters there. This is the name of the sutra and the spiritual hosts who bring it into being. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Na Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Na Mo Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa 南无大方广佛华严经，华严海会佛菩萨南。大方广佛华严经，华严海会佛菩萨。So, welcome everybody from whatever road has brought you here. Some of you are attending this assembly virtually, online. We're webcasting tonight out to the world, and if people want to review what happened here later, I invite you to go to the YouTube channel called Dharma Realm Live. Dharma Realm Live is where we archive all of the webcasts that we record here. Could I remind everybody, please, to disarm your device? Click that off. Avoid embarrassment when it rings in the middle of a very profound passage. Disrupting your chance at enlightenment. Oh, but it was a good call. Call back. Open your text, please, to page 4 and 5. This guy here. Sam, a little bit of housekeeping. Could you sit in the front row? You're wearing a jasha. Nobody will dare sit in front of you. There we go. All right. And Connie and Suzanne, scoot over to the end. If you sit on the end, nobody's going to climb over you to get to those seats. These are housekeeping items that we need to pay attention to. Shifu used to scold people for taking up more than one space or sitting in the wrong spot. I don't scold, but I do want people to be conscious of everyone coming in behind you. All right, we are in our text on page 1, 2, 3. Page 4, we're on the 4th stanza. So if you look down, we have the stanza that begins with 不取众相 in Chinese. And over on the right, it is such a one then practices giving. The text is usually set up with prose and then verses. The prose are regular long lines, grammar, in paragraphs, sentences in paragraphs. The verses come in meter. They go dun 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 dun. Usually 7, sometimes 5 characters to a line. Pretty clear that those verses were sung or chanted. They weren't spoken. When we're doing them now in English, it's nice to try to reconstruct the original. Of course, tunes are hard to record. We'll have to put a tune on it, kind of make it up as we go. But classical languages, for example, Sanskrit is famous for its poetry. Sanskrit poetry still exists that was chanted back in the earliest history of humanity, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. The Vedas, for example, are chanted and sung. There are people whose lives are given entirely to memorizing and chanting Sanskrit. They're called pandit. And I had this profound impression in the Sanskrit class that I took at UC Berkeley back in 1971. And our Sanskrit teacher invited a Pandit Bhatta, to come in to chant for us. And he came all the way from Pune or somewhere where his entire life from childhood had been training to memorize huge, huge chunks of Sanskrit text, memory only. And he then would chant them in the traditional tunes and modes that came from antiquity. Pandit Bhatta, big smile on his face, sat right on the desk. He jumped right up on the desk, crossed his legs, and did his head wiggle, head bob like that, and put his palms together. And first thing he did was chant his praise of Sanskritam, the sacred language, the language that they say came right from the gods. They consider Sanskrit to be perfect language, no exceptions, not like English with everything has an exception. Pandit Bhatta started to chant, and I won't imitate it because I can't do it, but it was absolutely captivating. It sounded, number one, old. It had that ring of sounds that have been in human ears for thousands of years, and he was absolutely in command of it. It just flowed out of him. And Professor Goldman at some point just said, "Thank you very much, thank you." And Pandit Bhatta took it to the end of the stanza and stopped, and sat down. That was his job. That's what he did, as he chanted Sanskrit. So certainly the Chinese, when this was translated, which was the 9th century, the Chinese had a long time custom of yin, shi, humming, chanting poetry. And when I was first in Taiwan, 1969, I arrived in Taiwan for the first time, and the first day in Taiwan, our organizers of our program from Oberlin College invited a poet from Taiwan, Yu Guangzhong, who is still alive, still very much a figure on the Taiwanese literary scene, poet Yu Guangzhong. He's at Zhongshan Daxue down in Kaohsiung, Sun Yat-sen University. He is a scholar of ancient Chinese poetry, and he knows how they yin shi, how they used to, yin means to hum, to intone ancient Chinese poetry. And he gave us the flavor of the Book of Songs, the Shi Jing. He picked out a couple poems and chanted them for us. And they were so musical, so beautiful. And again, they just echoed with the ripples that sounded like they had been in human knowledge for thousands and thousands of years. Lao shu mo shi wo gu. Big rat, don't eat my grain, was the poem from the Book of Songs. Very practical, the lament of the farmer. So we know that in the ancient world, before the advent of recording devices, before the advent of anything you could plug in, people, in order to remember important words, gave them a melody. And I think probably, my guess is, more important than the melody was the meter, was the bump, 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 because bump, 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 it connects with our heartbeat. So when it connects to something physical, and we also have the constant rhythm of breath, I think they put a melody and a meter to these important ideas to help us remember. So here we are with verses. We're in the verse section. It's the very beginning of our text, which is called the 10 Grounds chapter. The 10 Grounds chapter is one chapter of a big sutra, this long, if it was printed out. We're looking at this much of it, one chapter, chapter 26. And we're in part 6 of the 10. So we're more than halfway through the 10 grounds chapter of the whole Flower Garland Sutra. We're at the very beginning of the 6th ground, and the bodhisattvas are asking for Dharma. They're saying, please teach us about what's called the bodhisattva path. How does an enlightened, awakened being think, act, speak? How do their hearts move? And the sutra takes us right into the heart of a bodhisattva. It says, then the bodhisattva had this thought, and it talks about it. So that's the main theme of our sutra. And in this moment of the text, a bodhisattva whose name is Jietuo Yue Pusa, moon of liberation, bodhisattva, is asking, let's see here. I beg your pardon. This is not Jietuo Yue. This is another requester of Dharma. He's called the interlocutor. He's the one who asks for Dharma. His name is Zhi Zai Tian Wang, the king of the heaven of self-mastery. He's in charge of his own body, mind, feelings, thoughts, intuitions. He is the one singing, chanting a request to the Bodhisattva treasury of Vajra. Please speak for us. Please teach us, he says. And in the Buddha's world, you ask for the Dharma before the Buddha speaks it. He doesn't just say, sit down, I'm going to teach you a sutra. I'm going to teach you about the Bodhisattva. You have to ask him. And so that's what's happening. That's where we are. And so we're going to put a little melody with a little bit of a bump, 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 bump on this verse to kind of get the feeling of the Bodhisattva making that request. All right? So let's do it. Okay, we'll start with the Chinese. We're on page 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you look over on the page 4, 4th stanza, the one that starts with 不取众相, 不取众相, 而行施. All right, that's the text we're going to do. Then we're going to switch over to the English, and we'll recite it in unison. Okay, here we go. I'll give you a line, and you give it back. 不取众相而行施, 不取众相而行施, 本觉诸恶见持戒, 本觉诸恶见持戒, 戒法无害常堪忍, 戒法无害常堪忍, 持法行礼具精进, 持法行礼具精进. Over to the right, let's chant, recite together in unison. Here we go. Together. Such a one then practices giving and never clings at any hallmarks. Having ended all evil doing, he holds the precepts immaculately. Having understood that dharmas are not to blame, such a one can be truly patient. Aware of how the dharma nature is free of hallmarks, one grows full of vigorous energy. Let's look at the Chinese word for word. 不取众相而行施. I'll give you the literal word for word. Ready? Does not, 取, grasp, hold on to. 众, the many, 相, features, hallmarks, characteristics. What is that? Things you can know. How do we know things? The eyes see them, the ears hear them, nose sniffs them, tongue tastes them, skin feels them. The mind categorizes them. The mind knows them. That's how we learn things, right? That's how data comes in for knowledge, is through the 6 senses. 相, that 4th word, is the things that the 6 senses see. The eyes see sights. You know that is red. You know that is bright. You know that is dim. That is murky, dark. Various things the eyes, that's a hallmark, that's a xiang, right? The ear hears sounds. The sound is very pure. The sound is murky. It's indistinct. The sound is high-pitched. That sound is low-pitched. The sound endures. It resonates. That sound is staccato, brief. The ear discriminates all those xiang, right? So those are all hallmarks. Those are all things that the ears hear, etc., right? Tongue flavors, nose smells. Skin, body gets sensations. Floor beneath your bottom is now solid and hard. The air on your face is not too hot, not too cold. There's a fragrance of incense in the air. The nose picks that one up. Those are all hallmarks, all right? Now, 不取 doesn't grab them, doesn't seek them, doesn't hold on to them, some people would translate chu as to seek, to look for, doesn't anticipate. Right? So far, you got that notion? The senses record those inputs without effort. They come on their own. Having a body, the body has all those senses intact. And we need not chu. We don't have to grasp them. What's the flip side of that? We also don't have to reject them. Right? The sutra doesn't say that, but that's implied. There's often reaching for is followed by running from, often. So what if that's somebody you really like? That's somebody you want to talk to. So that would be a hallmark, an appearance, a data that you anticipate, you look forward to it, and you enjoy it. But over there is somebody you really want to avoid. You don't like that person. That person irritates you. So you are pulling back from those. Just that hallmark sets you aversion in motion. So attraction, aversion. Some people say that the difference between cultivation, our practice of whatever spiritual path that you walk, is characterized. What's different about me since I began to cultivate? Well, some people say, I'm not speaking personally, some people say that they're a little more aware of now, having cultivated, how much time they spent before pursuing pleasure, running from pain. And if you think about it, if that's your lens you're going to look through, how much time do we spend running for stuff we want, success, fame, wealth, good food, popularity, etc., and fleeing from its opposite, running from pain? If that weren't true, Walgreens would be out of business. That aisle with analgesics, right? Used to be aspirin, then came along Tylenol, and Tylenol ate your liver, and so it was Advil. And then there's the stronger stuff, which is prescription. And if that weren't true, every pub would they'd have to open up a bigger food section, right? Because people wouldn't be drowning their sorrows. Fill them up again, lads. I'll take a 6-pack. Why? Because we're running from pain, right? If we were completely at home and satisfied and peaceful and balanced and mellow and just observing 种相, the hallmarks as they came in, why label that section as aversion, this section as desirable, and go out so vigorously, spending most of our waking hours pursuing pleasure, running from pain? how would Las Vegas ever survive another day if people were not pursuing pleasure, running from pain, right? America's playground, they say, right? So I remember driving on Highway 80, heading east, and you cross the Sierras and you go, and you come down into Reno, and you don't see it for a bunch of miles. Then you come around the corner, and there in the dark of the night is Reno, Nevada. The lights blaze up and light up the sky. The electricity bill for the strip on Reno, Nevada must be a large chunk of Nevada's electricity. I swear, that city in the dark suddenly leaps up, and you see the amount of light generated by the casinos in Reno for people who pursue pleasure. It's playground. Las Vegas the same. It's stunning at night. How many light bulbs are there saying, have fun. You're having fun now, right? This must be it. So we do. We pursue pleasure. We run from pain. And only when we stop, if we sit still, if you have a practice that allows you to reflect, to find some stillness, suddenly this dynamic seems like a whole lot of wasted energy. Why? The action is all, Sherpa would say, in the square inch, which is what? That's one that I don't have and I want it. That's one that I really want to get away from, man, with everything I can. Not that painful one, put that away. That one, that's the one I want. But it's catching, it's hurry up, I better go a little faster. I don't want that, but that's the one oh, geez, We're just constantly in this dynamic of running from the painful ones, the aversion, pursuing the pleasure. So, this bodhisattva, 不取众相, does not seek, likewise, does not avoid the ones he wants, the ones she doesn't want. And you save a lot of effort. Why? The xiang come on their own. All of that judgment, love, hate, love, hate, love, hate, love, hate, love, hate, love, hate, is work that we do with our thoughts. So the bodhisattva, after she has got some stillness, has some awareness, bit by bit, those dharmas seem to level out a little bit. This came home to me personally. I did a pilgrimage at one point in my early formation as a monk. And when I was with a companion and we were bowing, doing prostrations on the highway outdoors, and we traveled a mile a day, and once we had some instructions that we gave ourselves. One was bow all the time. If it rains, we bow. Put on raincoat. If it's super hot, we bow. Carry a little more water. So we kind of leveled out the weather that way. If people are friendly towards us, we bow. We don't pay attention. If people are hostile towards us, we bow. And leveling out the reception, the other. Harder still was leveling out the reactions to the situations that arose inside. That was harder, much harder than simply not responding to the situations outside. So it got to be a lot the same. It got kind of, I don't want to say boring, but hour after hour after hour, day after day after day of the very, 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 very same practice, bowing to the ground 8 hours a day, chanting the very same, chanting what? Exactly what we just chanted. Namo Da Fang Guang Po Huai. It got to be the same a lot. And so I thought, not making a lot of progress here. Maybe I better increase the pressure on my situation. So, the hardest thing I have to deal with is the food every day. Hard to deal with the food. Why? We're eating one meal a day of whatever was offered, right? We did not choose. We're hearing a Vietnamese translation. That's the second voice. So it's good that we're having two languages going on. So we lived the way the Buddha's disciples lived, which is to say whatever was offered is what we ate. We didn't carry food, and we didn't go into stores or, 7-Elevens, couldn't find them on the coast. They didn't exist back then. So whatever came, and if we did in fact collect some food on the roadside. We collected wild plants, wild greens. So bowing along, and I thought, golly, if this continues all the way to the city of 10,000 Buddhas, I probably won't be enlightened by the time we arrive. Not good. I really want to get enlightened by the time we arrive. That was my false thought, right? Already anticipating pleasure. When I'm enlightened, it's all good, right? Better than what it is now. So, called a false thought. Missed it entirely. Master Hua would come out and say, "You're seeking." Do you recognize it? 道无求，处变无有. When you get to the place where you're seeking nothing at all, there are no further worries at that point. And he'd say, "You understand, Guozhan?" I say, "No, Shifu." He would say, "See you next month." A month later, "How are you doing, Guozhan?" Said Shifu. "Still seeking," I see. We're out there seeking. So what did I do? I thought, okay, I got to up the pressure on my practice. Here's what I'll do. I'll tell the cooks from now on, no oil, no salt, no sugar in the food. I want unseasoned food from now on. No oil, no salt, no sugar. So I anticipate, will there be any dessert in the offering? Will there be an apple torte with powdered sugar on top, Will there be ice cream? Thinking about that, that can't be the good thought. I shouldn't think that. But, maybe last week they brought ice cream. Maybe they'll still come. I'm bowing to ice cream. Namo ice cream. Namo strawberry sherbet sopoha. So these are totally false thinking. My mind run away, right, pursuing pleasure. So I thought, that's wrong. Okay, no more sugar. No more sugar. Absolutely no more sugar from now on. And so, I wrote a note to Marty. I said, tell him I won't eat any salt, no sugar, no oil. He goes, "You're nuts. You're just nuts. Forget it, will you? Eating one meal a day, you're exercising for 8 hours. Eat what they bring. Is that the Buddha's way? Come on. Stick to the middle way." I go, no. I got to really, this is my chance to get enlightened. I'm not going to miss it because of my tongue. Missing the point that my tongue was my biggest obstacle, right there, right at the point. So, okay, no more salt, no more sugar. So Marty passed on the note to the lay people who were still coming up from Los Angeles to make the offering. They were driving 6 hours in the car to find us maybe on the highway to maybe make the offerings, So they said, what can he eat? Marty said, just you try your best, so. And so they offered you, all you have to do is just don't eat the dessert. Let them offer anything. So, okay. So the first time the lay people bring out unseasoned food with no sugar, no dessert, I very pious, thank you, that's good. Proper nutrition for a bhikshu, Put it in my mouth, and my tongue instantly was searching for flavor. It's going, I don't taste anything, It's like, where's the salt? Where's the oil, And I had this dialogue with my tongue. My tongue was qu zhong xiang, right? Seeking the hallmarks of flavor. There was no flavor in the food. Now, mind you, we learned later that vegetables are incredibly flavorful, but at the time, I was so busy at fighting with myself. I really want to cultivate hard because why? I had a desire in my heart. I want to get enlightened. As soon as I have that thought, food is flavorless. Why? Because I'm building it on I want this thing called enlightenment. How could food possibly satisfy that? So, tripped myself up by seeking the hallmarks of flavor. And I looked across, and Marty is like eating his food, watching me wrestling with my mind. And I can't speak. I'm just tying myself in knots around my mouth, And so, line number 3, 结法无害常看人. Having understood that dharmas are not to blame, such a one can be truly patient. I think truly is misspelled there. Is that right? Is that the way you spell truly? T-R-U-L-Y, or is there should that E is not? Yeah. So, when I looked at this third line, understanding that dharmas are not to blame, my problem was not the fault of the food. The food was not to blame. It was my mind massacring the food, right? And furthermore, as a monk, I was manipulating lay people into pursuing my own false thinking. How sad. Here is a kind-hearted layperson who was taking a big portion of their day to getting up early in the morning, preparing delicious vegetarian food that is already no meat, no fish, no onions, no garlic, no shallots, no leeks, all of our dietary restrictions, and putting it in heat-containing containers, heat-preserving containers, getting in the car and driving out who knows where, somewhere on the Pacific Coast Highway, to find the bowing monks out there somewhere, and making the offering before 11 o'clock when we eat. Fitting within these entirely narrow, restrictive conditions to feed us. How nice. And when the food comes, I'm making trouble about it. How sad. Misguided. And it's truly the opposite of the bodhisattva here, who is 不取中相. So, what happened? Well, that vow didn't last very long. We had a lunch in Pacifica, right there on the coast, with Shifu. Shifu came out one day, Master Xuanhua, our founder. And he had with him, interesting, that was a great lunch. He brought with him a famous Chinese author whose name was Xie Bingying. 有没有谁认识谢冰英？知道吗? Okay, she is her famous book was called 女病, right? 知道吗？谢冰英女病，怎么说？女病嘛，是吗？ Female soldier, woman combatant. She was what? She was, I don't have the details, but she wrote about a woman taking up arms in some of the civil wars that racked China in the 20th century. She's a very good writer. She lived in San Francisco, and she was a devout Buddhist and drew near Master Hua. And her story is a very compelling story for another time, not tonight. But she, apparently, she had a very protective husband who wouldn't let her out very often. She only had like a couple hours a day when she could go shopping or something. And so that day, Master Hua had kidnapped her, put her in the car, and taken her down to visit the bowing monks. And she was sneaking out and not telling her husband. And she had a hat pulled down over her face, and she riding out. So she could kind of giving her an outing, So there she was, and Fang Guowu, one of the Gold Mountain Dharma protectors, showed up in Pacifica to make offerings to the monks. And so here is Master Hua, and he was looking at me and said, Guozhan, how's it going? And I said, well, it's not going very well. This is my chance to talk in a month. The only person I spoke with is Master Hua. And he said, "What's going on? What's wrong?" I said, "Well, Shifu, I really want to get enlightened." And he said, "And so you're not eating, right?" I said, "Right, Shifu." He said, "Stupid." So, "Eat," he said. That was the end of my no oil, no salt. No, he took some cake, and he took the cake and he put it in his own mouth and chewed it and swallowed it. And he said, "That's really good." He said, "That will get you enlightened." He said, and I'm like, "You want some?" "Yeah, well, sure, I do, sure." You know? So now I had a stomach ache, too much cake, So, but I'll never forget that. He said, "This is good cake. It will get you enlightened," meaning taking my obvious false thought and turning it on its head. So, the lesson that I take from that is the dharmas are not to blame. It's not the fault of the sugar. It's not the fault of the salt. It's not the fault of the cooking oil that I am still confused. Right? It's the fault of my seeking pleasure, i.e., something I want, getting enlightened, and running from pain, something I'm afraid of, which is I might not get enlightened. There might be disappointment in my future, so I better prepare and run from it. All confused. Takes me out of the fullness of my six senses right this minute. My eyes are working just fine, to the fullness of their capability right now. My ears hear 360, just fine. And yet, in the midst of that fullness of the six senses, my mind is way out ahead when I want to get enlightened, might not get enlightened, want to get enlightened, might not get enlightened, want to get enlightened, which is called affliction. Never at rest, never at peace. So, how interesting, here is the Bodhisattva who, 不取众相, does not seek all of these hallmarks. Because why? They're there anyway. They're all here. He doesn't lack any of his six senses. He also does not run from that particular combination of hallmarks he doesn't like. Are, xing, shi. What's the last three characters? Instead, he is generous. Instead of concerning himself, herself, with his score sheet of ticking off the boxes, how much he got today, and unfortunately how much he lost today. Instead of constantly looking at his own personal ledger, debits, credits, instead, his concern is giving. Her concern is how much he or she can benefit others. Right? Now, compare the wisdom of those two models. Here I'm supposed to be the holy bowing monk, right? Out there preserving world peace, okay? No, I'm not. I'm in there counting up flavor, anticipating lunch. How elevated is that, right? Oh boy, good food coming. Oh, but I can't eat it, damn it. Well, because I'm going to get enlightened. Yeah, but it doesn't taste very good. Right? That's called selfish. It's called looking for advantages for myself. Compared to somebody who's thinking, what's the point of food? The point of food is nourishing your body so you can go out and help people. At the very least, you can bring the Dharma into your life, thereby in the world, At the most minimal, it's good exercise. Why not bow and pray for the world? Wouldn't that be nice? Just be a blessing for the world. That's giving. It's a very different way to spend your precious lifetime. So the Bodhisattva is not in there. They say, the Chinese would say, 打自己的算盘. He's not in there on his own abacus, calculating benefit, profit, benefit, harm, loss, gain, Man, oh man, you think it's so simple, but what a profound lesson that slipped right by me, bowing on the highway. The short way to say it is, put all that energy into generosity, and your days go better. There's more light. So the Bodhisattva 不取中相而行施 doesn't calculate, doesn't reject all the hallmarks that come to his six senses. Instead, she is there benefiting others, being generous. All right, that's line one. Line two, 本觉诸恶见持戒. How timely this line is. We have just had a big, we call them Dharma assemblies. We had a big gathering, a big retreat, a week long, up at City of 10,000 Buddhas up in Ukiah. And what went on was something called the lay bodhisattva precepts. Bodhisattva precepts for laity. And this is a particular, it's a very interesting it's hard to know what to call it. It's an investiture, it's a learning, it's leading to an initiation. And I don't know exactly whether there's an equivalent in my original Methodist upbringing. I don't think there is. Excuse me one second here, I'm out of batteries. I don't think there is an equivalent. I know in in the Roman Catholic world, there is a time when people can become what are called oblates. An oblate is a lay minister who has made vows, made promises to live at another level of commitment. I don't know if there's any similar thing in the Protestant tradition. There we go. Does anybody know? Is there any way, is there any level of... Not really. So, here's the situation. Lay people say, I would like to take vows to give myself orders. That finding a language for it is a challenge. I want to ask more of myself now. From now on, that I will, what do we say, swear an oath? I will make a vow. I will make a big, deep promise that from now on, I'm going to live by these guidelines. These are my new marching orders. This is my new level of commitment. And so the way that we do it at City of 10,000 Buddhas, the ceremony is done once every 3 years on the average, maybe not as often. And the candidates, men and women, study for an entire week the details. And there are, how many? 6 major and how many minor? How many? 28. 6 major precepts, 28 minor subsidiary. Minor doesn't really do it. They're not minor. They're subsidiary. They follow from the 6 precepts and vows that will now be your new standards for the rest of your life. And after the study, then the candidates go in front of the Buddha and together with their classmates make those promises, make those vows. And it's very solemn when you take the actual ordination. I was heading for to take part when I was not able to do so this time. But the experience of preparing for and taking those precepts is quite profound. And so here's our line in the sutra that says, 本觉诸恶. This person has put an end to any personal evil doing. They don't do bad things anymore. 见持戒, and solidly, with determination, live according to precepts. That's the, now precepts, we have a special use for that word. My dissertation chairman, who is a Japanese Buddhist priest, a married priest, not a celibate monastic, he would read that word as he follows a severe discipline, he would say. And severe being the key word, it's like, that is to say, pejorative, like don't do it, He's a layman. They have a different interpretation. But discipline would be the way he would translate 戒 here, a discipline. And of course, discipline is to punish. There's a cognate for discipline. That's not the way we mean it. Meaning a code of behavior that you enforce. You discipline yourself. You pull in. The problem with translating that as discipline is it sounds, one, punitive, sounds like a punishment. Two, you can't avoid it, it sounds constricting. It sounds like a limiting, like a pulling in, and almost a crippling, and you have to pull in to hold the precepts. And while I was not part of the teaching, Dharma Master Jin Chuan, who is here, did take an active part in passing on the precepts, explaining them during that week to the English language group. I think it's important to look at precepts as liberation, not as constriction. If you look at precepts, and again, that's our translation, you could say, what would be a good word for English? Vows. Please. Yeah.
Really want to get free, the precepts is a framework that you can use to guide yourself so you can get free. So it's not kind of like a discipline. It's basically this approach, because you get frameworks for everything in the world now. So it's just a framework for approaching life.
So you said it was connected to
IT, so you have all these frameworks when you do engineering, et cetera, et cetera. He has an IT background. We actually have a lot of IT people in our class.
Right, and tonight we do as well.
Yeah, I'm sure, in the Bay Area.
So a framework,
that made a lot of sense.
If you're a coder, you work with framework. If you're an engineer, you definitely, if you're a carpenter, what do you put up first? The rebar and the 2x4s, right, the framework. Yeah, good, that's very helpful. Last week I was in Warren Wilson College, Swannanoa gathering in Asheville, North Carolina, teaching meditation for musicians, name of the class. And in the class, we had 29 musicians. Some were professionals. Some were people who earned their living. Their daily bread came from the music that they made, or composed, or performed. Others were absolute beginners. Many people were, like myself, were somewhere in between. People who listen to music, enjoy it, and occasionally perform, but are seeking for some concentration during performance, seeking for a system to string together the tools they already have for concentration, and others who are simply looking to overcome stage fright, for whom getting on stage was terrifying and interfered with their enjoyment of the instrument they played. People who can play by themselves facing the wall just fine. As soon as the first person enters the room, suddenly their fingers cripple up and their breath constricts, and So I co-taught with my friend Steve Boffman, who is a consummate musician, and I'm obviously the the meditation side, the meditation resource for the class. And one of the first things that I established in the class was that meditation, not precepts, does not require us to constrict or limit or confine or constrain or compress or to be solemn about. How interesting, right? These are mainstream Americans, by and large. There was a Swiss gentleman, one person from France, but all, African American, Caucasian American, Middle American musicians. And my sitting there, wearing this robe with my head shaved, talking about meditation, I could see many people, their first response was, this meditation stuff might hurt. The movement was that, to meditate. I said, catch that, notice that. What I'm going to suggest instead, and 本觉诸阿见持戒, this is the attitude that I got from my teacher about precepts, about meditation, which is only one aspect of cultivation, is that we get it right when we meditate and apply this framework with a sense of joy, with a sense of expansion, exactly the opposite of that sense of this might hurt. He's probably going to tell me to do something I really don't want to do. Oh, here's the monk. That must mean you have to give up a lot of stuff, right? There's a monk. It must mean no this, no that, none of that, right? People looked at me and thought immediately, uh-oh, he's going to tell me I'm doing something wrong, right? There's judgment there. There's discipline. There's precepts. There's stuff I don't want to give up. That was the first response. I thought, wow, how different it is from what I've learned about practice. Imagine if we held our precepts, if we meditated with this sense of, I'm safe. I'm grounded. Like a tree is grounded with roots that go down and hold it and nurture it. I'm clear. I'm heading towards clarity, right? I'm going to be free. Different approach. What if we looked at our meditation and said, if I can let go of my constricting ego, the sense of self that makes me believe I'm different from and broken from all of you and the world around me, there's limitless and boundless connection with all beings, and the planet, and the air, and the fire, and the water, and the earth, and the consciousness. That's expansive. And all that's waiting from that connection is some discipline, some meditation, some stillness, some letting go of the inversion, the confusion, the affliction, the misery that comes from looking for the good stuff and running from the bad stuff, constantly, endlessly, thinking that somehow I'll finally get the good stuff that's going to satisfy me and I'll finally get away from the bad stuff I'm running, Letting go of all that and then saying, I'm really actually totally centered and full and mindful and peaceful right in this present moment, lacking nothing. Right? Which one of my senses is not reporting to its fullness right this minute? They're all full. There's no moment in the future when I'm going to get more in my eyes than I'm seeing right this minute. Right? More in my ears. Am I going to hear better tomorrow? Probably not. So why not rest in that? You know. So I suggested that to people, and I can't say they got it, because why? The reaction to discipline and meditation is so deep. This must hurt. You know. So funny. Does that connect with anybody? Anybody like look at precepts or meditation as first you got to get rid of something before you're gonna, Darius? Yeah? Yeah. It's like no fun, but I'll put up with it. You know, those monks, they have no fun. Maybe. The monks I've met are not sad souls. The real cultivators are not unhappy people who go around kind of limiting themselves into enlightenment. You know? No, it's like they tend to be fairly not seeking those hallmarks and not hanging on to them either. Taking it as it comes. Balancing in the middle. Finding a stillness in the midst of all those marks, right? That is more concerned with benefiting others than getting the good stuff. So interesting. So I just want to mention that. I know a community, Buddhist community. It's not a place. I know it's a mindset that I have gotten allergic to. And I'm talking about it more and more because I see it as actively destructive to what our teacher wanted to bring. And what are we calling it? We're calling it the Buddhism of fear. And the Buddhism of fear is an intention. It's all the difference it is. It's why bother taking the precepts? Why bother pursuing a spiritual path? It's a question I ask myself. Why do it? What's the point? And the Buddhism of fear often is unexamined. It's often passed on, I would say ignorantly, by what? 他们说，我听说, people say, she said, he said, the authority said, you better or else. If you don't, there's going to be trouble. Right? They come up with, it's passed on, there's no discipline, there's no principle, there's no theory behind it. It's a state of mind. And it's passed on in these marvelous rules called 莫名其妙的规矩. Incredible rules, right? One of my favorite ones was taught to me right here by a woman I won't name, who sadly is no longer here, Amitofo. But she was possessed of the Buddhism of fear, and that was her entire dharma, was the Buddhism of fear. And here's how it went. You offer a stick of incense. You saw myself do it, Marek did it, Sam did it a little while ago. Put a stick of incense in the censer. I hope both of you put that incense stick in the center of the censer. You didn't put it on the edge, did you? No? Because if the incense dust, if the ash falls outside of the censer, you know what's going to happen? You're going to break up from your family. 你知道吗? Oh. And it's usually followed by, this face, aversion face. Okay, and I was like, the Buddha's going to do that? How does that work? 你不知道啊，不要问了，厉害。There's always a in there somewhere. And there's another one, okay? When you light that stick of incense, you better not light that stick from a burning candle or an oil lamp. Now, we don't have flames because we're so much wood here. But many Buddhist altars have an oil lamp or a candle. If you light that incense from the candle, they go, 不要这样做，透佛的光. You're stealing the Buddha's light. Did you know? Nancy, you got scolded for that? Did you hear the reason why? She never told you. Did she go, Yeah. Okay, Connie just said, now you got to get it right, because you don't want to make it wrong. You got to be really careful on this point, man. How you extinguish the incense when it's burning. So you have this little flame on the end of the incense, right? What do you do at that point? What's the difference? Okay, the is spitting on the incense. The Buddha doesn't like that. The Buddha thinks that's really unsanitary. 堕地狱,下地狱. Right? You're falling into the, oh my God. All right, so, and Connie asked, why? And you go, okay, well, I'm sure there's some reason somewhere back in the distant past when that rule was passed down from the Triple Jewel and, greatly wise sages. Don't think so. 莫名其妙的规矩, right? Marvelous rules. And, okay, here we are laughing at people who do this, but what's the problem here? The problem is an attitude. There's not always going to be somebody beside you with wisdom telling you exactly what to do. We ourselves have to, at some point, launch into the world of the ocean of sense input and make our own way with wisdom. Finding our way. Should we go forward? Should we go backwards? Do we go left? Do we go right? Do we stand still? And when? Do we go left, right, forward, backwards, or don't move at all? We have to use our own wisdom. Okay, what do we do? Well, Master Hua would say, ask yourself, is this action harmful? Are you fighting? Are you contending? Is this contentious? If not, the action will not lead to affliction. There won't be any pain, dissatisfaction behind it. Go ahead, put your heart behind it. Work with your heart. Go for it. Number two, is there greed behind the action? Is this action based on a wish to get more for you? If so, affliction will be the result. There's no end to greed. It just piles up and piles up. If no, offering incense in front of the Buddha is not greedy unless you offer the whole stick, or the whole bag, the whole, light 66 at once. That's greedy. The result is the Buddha's face gets smelted black with the smoke. That's really auspicious. Good luck for you, all 60 sticks at once. Oh, in China, you see people walking across the courtyard and waving all 60 sticks, trying to, they can't blow it out. There's 60 sticks on fire. Oh my goodness. So, if there's no greed, do it. It's not the case that Buddhists don't do anything. We're always afraid to do anything because we're going to fall into the hells. There's trouble. Again, family's going to be lost. You're going to. Who wants to be a Buddhist? Go get baptized or just be a scientist and forget religion entirely. You'd be better off with no religion. This is what you call bad religion. Religion that cripples you, that makes you afraid, that gives you this sense of, oh my God, what if I do that wrong? And it turns the Buddha into some kind of a bad-tempered cop who's there waiting to bust you for mistakes, gotcha, ha, kong, bad meditator, It's like, oh no, that's not the Buddha that is going to survive or succeed here, right? So, you look at your motive, what is your intention? If the intention is free of dissatisfaction leading to more seeking, I am not content, I want more, I want it more. If you don't have that thought, do it. Go ahead and do good. Go out and get in the world and engage and make it a better place. If the thought is selfish, or if it's entirely out to benefit you, instead of being what? Selfless and sharing, stop. Don't do it. Because why? Affliction will be the result. The self is a very slippery character in there. Try to serve it, and it's here and gone. Self is not your servant, not your boss. If there's a dishonesty in the action, pause, because it'll lead to affliction. If not, put your heart behind it and do it. So, I guess what I want to reflect our teacher as leaving us is the basis for wholehearted action in Buddhism with a joyful spirit. Get out and engage happily, precepted with discipline to benefit the world, because we are harmless, generous, content, unselfish, benefiting others, and honest, with energy, right? Let those old ladies' rules, you're in trouble now, you blew the incense out. It's like, who needs incense? Your mind is already negative. No incense will ever improve that negative attitude. Versus the sense of, oh, this is incense, so nice. Can I offer it to the Buddha? Good. No need to fear that you're going to get in trouble because you made a gift. Right? So, you see the difference. That Buddhism of fear, we identify it and point to it and say, what does that do to the Buddha? That makes the Buddha some nasty character who's like spying into your behavior to find a problem with you. Not the Buddha that we want. We want the Buddha to be the wisdom in my heart, leading me to letting go of affliction, to transforming fear, to increase our goodness as a human being. That's the Buddha that our teacher introduced to us. You don't have to call it the Buddha, call it wisdom and compassion. There's no wisdom and compassion in breaking up your family because the incense ash fell out of the censer, right? Oh my goodness. Who has some more Moming Chimiao de Greji? Angela.
I was told to be careful when reciting the sutras because if I say a word wrong in Chinese, that terrible things will happen.
Terrible things will happen. When you recite the sutra in Chinese, that's really encouraging, isn't it? That's really going to lead you to reaching for the Chinese text next time, yeah? Oh my goodness.
I have another one.
Okay, what's the other one?
Okay, so when I was like 8, my brother and I were...
Is your mom here? Your mom?
Yeah.
She's here? Okay, close your ears. Just close your ears.
So I was at my grandma's house, and she has a lot of Guan Yin statues around the house, and my brother and I were playing with pillows, and I accidentally knocked down a Guan Yin statue and broke her head off.
You broke the head off the statue.
And my grandma, she got so mad at me that she said I was gonna go to hell. And
Uh-oh.
I cried all afternoon.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't know who Guan Yin was during the time.
Right. And you were 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, Guan Yin is really pissed at you. Boy, oh boy. So, bad religion is worse than no religion at all. You got another one?
So, people instructed that, you should recite 24/7 if you can, the Buddha's name.
I can't hear.
People, suggest that, it'd be good if you can be focused and recite the Buddha's name 24/7. So, I try to do that, and then I'm going to the restroom, so I'm really happy, and I'm still chanting, and then I was screamed at for reciting, in the restroom stall, and I seriously had trouble thinking, how is it possible to recite 24/7? Because, I can't pee or poop, or even go blow my nose, because I'd have to stop reciting. So what do? Do I stop eating and drinking so I can recite 24/7? And I was totally conflicted, and I was seriously scared. So I didn't know what I should do. Just don't recite at all, or
Yeah.
I didn't know how to make peace with that. And I said, well, what if I suddenly died? like suddenly collapsed in the stall, then I would have like died not reciting. Like my last thought would be like fear. Oh my God, I gotta stop reciting now. Because, and then I thought about, well, I'm actually in a walking toilet. Really, I'm carrying crap in my colon and I'm a walking toilet. So then I shouldn't recite because, especially in my head, because this body is a walking toilet stall. That was what I thought in my head. So
Yeah, okay.
actually, in truth, I'm still afraid of reciting.
Yeah. So here's the sentence from our teacher that covers all these stories, which is the purpose of cultivation is to transform affliction, not to increase affliction. If you, because of your intention to advance along the Buddhist path, originally it's I can't believe anybody starts with a bad intention. If in the process of walking your spiritual path, you find yourself nervous, afraid, terrified, conflicted, stop and go back. Stop what you're doing, go back. Famous story in southern Taiwan, in a place called Qishan, where we spent a lot of time back in the early 90s. There was a laywoman who was a famous cultivator. Oh, she was vigorous. She just, her daily list of practice was more than most monks and nuns. She was really vigorous. And unfortunately, she mixed it with a wish to be the best cultivator. Her motive was to be known as the serious practitioner. And bless her heart, she was vigorous, but she took it that step too far where she wanted to get a return for it. She wanted to get well known because of her practice. So what did she do? She decided she was going to eat one meal a day. All right? Now, who eats one meal a day? Well, monastic monks and nuns. And some lay people who live in the monastery, perhaps, who really, really, really want to be vigorous, but are adapting the rest of their lifestyle to include cutting out 2/3 of the nutrition of normal people. Not easy to do. And so, I won't tell you her name, people know her. We found out that she was eating one meal a day, and I said, you know what? Bad idea. Why don't you eat minimum 2 meals a day? Eat a big breakfast. And at night, if you want to drink some doujiang, soy milk or whatever you want, drink that too. Why? You have 4 daughters. You have a husband who's always running amok. You have to bail him out all the time. You're a gardener. You run everybody's life. You're a busybody. That takes energy, So eat enough food. She said, yeah. Right? Meanwhile, meaning pay no attention to the monk. What does he know? I'm a cultivator. She continued to eat one meal a day. Her daughters came to us and said, Pastor, please tell our mother to eat. She's got such a bad temper ever since she started to really cultivate. She scolds us all the time. Why? She's just exhausted every day, and so she uses her temper to get things done instead of using her. I said, your mother is entirely too stubborn. She won't listen to me. So sure enough, guess what? She got an ulcer. She had a nervous breakdown. She nearly estranged all her daughters. So finally, one day, she came to the monastery crying, afflicted. I don't know what's wrong ever since I started. I said, guess what? You didn't listen to me when I told you you are practicing over your head. You are living the life of what you imagine a monastic would do. In fact, you're competing with us. You're competing with the monks to be the biggest, toughest cultivator of all time. Why don't you cultivate according to your strength, according to your actual position? You're a mother of 4 daughters. You're a supportive wife of a husband who needs you to balance his books, to keep him out of trouble. You know, you run a store in the basement of your house. You know, you're providing for a whole community of people. You're capably leading as a model for cultivation. You're leading all of them astray. They look at you running into trouble and think, are we supposed to do that? You know, why don't you be a solid role model, comfortable, happy in your cultivation? Why don't you find peace in the midst of the Buddha Dharma instead of affliction? And she said, yeah, right? So I wish I could say that things worked out well. They actually didn't. She continued to eat one meal a day, and the family was increasingly miserable. Sad, because she was really the center of the community, for the lay people. So things worked out later in the end in a kind of a miraculous way, but there's an example of someone who took affliction as the goal of their cultivation, not liberation from affliction. Why? Simply, she did it too much. Too much, too little, both miss the middle. Right? In our cultivation, how much is enough? Here we have all these vigorous cultivators who took a week of instruction and then in front of the Buddha said, I am going to uphold these lay bodhisattva precepts to the end of my life. And it's a huge project. If they did nothing else with the rest of their time but focused on applying those to every situation, they would live a fulfilling, wonderful, rich, spiritual life. Because there it's a steep mountain, those lay bodhisattva precepts, but they lead to incredible clarity and insight and connection. So I totally applaud and commend anybody who took on that set of marching instructions, that framework. And I want to encourage everyone who did, stick to the middle. If in the process of pursuing those precepts, you find yourself kind of with your needle in the red, you know, you're too many RPMs, you're smoking a little bit from your tires, you know, because you're beyond your strength, pull back. Ask yourself, how will I be holding these precepts a year from now? How will I hold them 5 years from now? How will I hold them 10 years from now? Am I pursuing them currently at a level that I can sustain 1, 5, 10, 20 years from now, the rest of my life? If not, scale back and go long. Cultivate anjiao li, anjiao fen. According to your strength, according to your station, your actual station, you will succeed. You will succeed. But if because I'm holding these precepts, I start to smell smoke around everything I do, furthermore, I'm making my community really upset because I'm so pure, I'm a pain in the butt, right? If so, be compassionate. Harmonize with the rest of the community so that you can hold those precepts without causing affliction in others, right? So it's not so easy. You're adjusting to a whole new level of habit, of perception, of reaction. Other people aren't used to that sudden change. That's why many people who take the Bodhisattva precepts gradually find fellow cultivators who also hold them because you understand each other's new styles. Ordinary folks who don't have those requirements often find you intolerable. Really a pain. I mean, seriously, you know, everyone else is driving 60 miles an hour, you're driving 50 because the speed limit says 50, but no other car on the road is going 50, and so you become a traffic hazard. What do you do? But it's the law. But you're going to die in that car, and you might kill someone. You know, difficult. That's a serious ethical quandary, right? Because why? You signed on to those precepts, you're following the law, no one else is. Question, what do you do? I mean, seriously, there's a test of your wisdom right there. So apply that situation to a living situation where everyone else is going 60 miles an hour and you're determined to go 50. translate that into, other situations. Everyone else in the office is going to Las Vegas for the Christmas party, and you're going home to recite a sutra, Do it. But do it in a way that doesn't get in their face. There's a lot of skill required in adjusting to your new standard, right? Bit by bit it becomes natural. They say, 最初勉强,以后自然. At the start, it's forced. Later, it becomes natural. So, I don't want to go on forever on this, but it's really, really important after you take the precepts. How do you integrate back into the world? And if you have these issues, come and talk. Find us out, seek us out, and talk about it. How's it working? What are the issues? I've already talked with Yan Lin about some of the issues that came up immediately for him. And Marek will be doing it now, and Sam and Kevin. Those of you who took those precepts, come and talk. Let's work it out, because these are real life issues. You want to hold them 20, 30, 40 years from now till you kick off, right? How are you going to do that? Taking them is hard, holding them is harder. So, all right? So, the last line, 知法性理具精进. Aware of how the Dharma nature is free of any characteristics, one grows full of vigorous energy. So the last line of our stanza says, fundamentally, at the nature of all things, there are no precepts. There are no senses. There are no objects of those senses. All of those come about mutually arising from the interaction between bodies, mouths, minds, habit, and desire. Right? Habits and desire struggle. The wish to go right and the energy of our past are constantly doing that. And in the Dharma nature, none of it. And yet all of it is there. So Shifu would say, fundamentally, there's not one thing, but we people make our mark. And everything arises. Before a single thought arises, there's nothing going on. A single thought arises and the 10,000 things exist. Right? Our minds make it all over and over and over and over. While we know Fa, Xing, Li, the Dharma nature has none of that. And aware of that, now here's the key. This is where it gets really rich. This is a bodhisattva. What does the bodhisattva do? Aware that the Dharma nature is empty, he or she goes out to save people, to benefit them. What does save mean? He goes out, she goes out to say, wake up, do good stuff, avoid the evil stuff. Life will be better. If you try to please yourself entirely, it'll be frustrating, because the depth of my desire is bottomless. When will you ever fill the stuff that your self says you need and want and better get or else? When are you ever going to get that pleasure that finally satisfies me? When are you ever going to get free of the stuff coming up behind you quick? Right in the middle, balanced, content, peaceful, satisfied. The Bodhisattva says, can you hear that? If not, we'll try it again later, but think it over, right? Full of vigorous energy, trying to wake people up. That's the point. My mother would call it what would she say? She would say, Jesus' spirit of happiness and love is what my mother would say. That's what, if you look at the life of Jesus of Nazareth, did he know the Dharma nature was empty? Well, he was certainly vigorous in waking people up, saving people. That's why it's not right to say Jesus was a bodhisattva. If you say that, you're going to piss off a lot of Christians who say, wait a minute, you can't say that. How do you know Jesus was a bodhisattva? Jesus was not a bodhisattva. He wasn't a Buddhist. So what do you say? We say instead, that Jesus of Nazareth displayed very bodhisattva-like behavior, right? He was unselfish in, according to the stories, in helping people leave suffering and attain happiness. So, different. Okay, got it? Such a one then practices giving and never clings at any hallmarks. Having ended all evil doing, he holds the precepts immaculately. Having understood the dharmas are not to blame, such a one can be truly patient. Aware of how the dharma nature is free of hallmarks, one grows full of vigorous energy. We've run out of time because I was going so long on that precept notion, but I wanted to point out that in our verse, did anybody pick out there's a theme in this verse? And I'll give you a clue. Think 6 paramitas. Giving, precepts, patience, vigor. Notice? See, those are 4 out of the 5. What's coming up next? Samadhi, and then wisdom. Yeah. So that's another thread stitching through our verse tonight. Is this particular set of Dharma practices called the paramitas, the 6 perfections. All right. We're going to dedicate the merit from tonight's lecture. If you'll turn to the back of your songbook that should be there with you, look at the dedication of merit. Got it. All right. Ah, what a joke. I'm in Dadgad tuning. I'm in the wrong tuning for this song, which is funny. I didn't expect that. brought to you by the Swannanoa Gathering, Warren Wilson College. So we're going to do dedication of merit, but we're not going to do it with a guitar because it's tuned in the wrong tuning for that. So please, with palms together and with hearts together, more importantly, let's send out that goodness that comes from sitting together with wholesome friends and turn it the way you want it to make a better world. Sending it out to ease the journey of someone passing on between bodies and realms is a good way to transfer it. Transfer it to countries, to entire civilizations chased onto a mountaintop by extremists who are out to destroy them, every single one. People who are suffering from airplane crashes, from gas explosions in the streets, people who have no water to drink because of algae blooms creating microcysteines, which are neurotoxins coming out of the tap, as happened to me earlier this week. So send out that merit, however you'd like to do it, please. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. I'm going to quickly switch over to the computer and show you some pictures. Do you have the VGA? People will know that when I was in Australia this last time, I got to know a bird, a kookaburra, and he came twice a day, and I progressed from taking pictures of these very large, noisy, loud birds that sing twice a day. Kookaburra sound, and it's unique to Australia. And one particular kookaburra came down to visit Sam, who is here. I'm nice that finally we can have Sam among us. He's my flat mate and Dharma protector there in Australia. And we got to know this bird called Ali. And Ali, among all the kookaburras, was willing to come down to talk to people and got close to us. And bit by bit, we'd feed him a little piece of a veggie ham that we washed the salt out of, and he would gobble it down and then fly away. And oh, it was a thrill, you know, human-bird connection. And it was great fun. So Jin He, whom people know, Jin He Shi is one of our residents here, and Jin He went over to Australia and kind of replaced me. He had waiting for visas to come through. And Jin He Shi discovered that he had an affinity with these animals and has now made some remarkable breakthroughs. We have people who are surrounded by the animals in Australia, know them very well, who are astonished by what Jin He Shi is doing with these birds. So I wanted to show you this one in particular. This is not Ali, it's a different kookaburra who has suddenly showed up and is behaving in a way that shocks a lot of people who don't know that kookaburras do this. Show you. Okay, try again. Here we are. There's your average kookaburra. Here's your monk. A little to the left. Bird massage. What can you say? Yeah. A little to the left there. That's good. Behind the way. Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's the spot. I mean, that's remarkable, right? It's like, what's going on here? Okay, so if that weren't enough, when I left in May, Sam and I had just Sam, raise your hand. That's Sam. Sam won't. Say hello to Sam when you get a chance. Yeah, hi Sam. We had just begun to approach possums. These things called brushy-tailed possums live in the roof of our house in the forest, in the bush. And we kind of hit on the idea we're feeding ollies, so maybe the possum could get close to us. So we started out with, what did we start with first? Fruit, bird seed, and fruit, and leftovers, and apple cores, and stuff from lunch. And he liked all those, and he was over there, and we'd put it on the table, and we'd sneak and watch, and he would like creep up and grab them and then run away, and then we got a little closer, and at that point, I left. I came back to Berkeley, and Sam would keep reporting, and then Jin He arrived, and here is where things are now. This is the one that truly astonishes all the local folks who've never seen anything quite like this. Guess what? The possum is like, get on with it, will you? I'm eating. And on and on. This goes on for 3 minutes. He's just full body massage. He doesn't. You think I'm kidding. This just goes on and 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 on. Amazing. So, a little bit of cranial sacral massage there, and Swedish therapeutic massage. And Jinho is holding his iPad in one hand and massaging with the other hand. He's photographing it. So truly, this is unexpected, right? There's the brushy tail. Nothing left out. It's like he's showing off or something. See what I can do? So there you go. Right. Then, this is what we're interested in next is we tried to do a bird feeder at one point, and the birds weren't all that interested, but now apparently Ali's success at getting food has kind of become a thing. And so if you look here, we have, this is a lorikeet. They're rainbow lorikeets, and they fly in packs. They're shy. Here's a second lorikeet right here. They've landed, this is our porch in Gold Coast. This is a magpie. It's one of the pairs of magpie. They mate for life, and there's always two, not just one. And the camera's going to switch over. You're going to see the kookaburra on the rail kind of saying, how about a massage? And the camera goes past. The other magpie is over here, and there's a butcher bird as well, a currawong. How about a massage? No? Okay. Come here. Come on. There's the other magpie. Says the kookaburra. Hi, don't forget me. How about that? So it's called Bird City in Banagan. Well, that's what I wanted to show you. Pretty astounding. There's another one. There's one more that has, we have 2 possums now that are taking advantage of our generosity to get to know the humans. I think they think we're pretty good. Not 1, but 2. Hello there, mate. Good day. Good night. So, there we go. How about that? It's my mother. Her first picture. There she is, as big as a tennis racket. She's, let's see here, this is 1924. She's 1 year old. There she is, with my grandmother. Backyard tent outing. Here she is at age 5. Summer camp. sideways. Here she is with some of her siblings and my grandfather, whom I never knew. This is she with my grandmother. Here's grandmother. A Southern belle from Kansas City. Here's my mother in high school. Here she is at a fashion show put on by the church. Here she is 5 years ago. This is how many of you knew her when she came to visit. And I added some pictures. This is one of the times she came to visit. (1993) 2003. With my brother, Steve, and the family cat. So let's see here. These are a few more photos. After my own father passed away, my mother remarried a very good man named Ted, who many of you met. Here she is on her wedding day. Obviously very happy. That's my father with my baby brother, with my bigger brother, my Guga, Steve, my dad. And this is a remarkable photo that I just wanted to show everybody for reference, right? What is it? This is called growing up in Canada in the 30s and 40s. What do you see? Everybody's carrying a rifle, first of all. Those are what you called hunting rifles. This is a Winchester lever action that holds 6 bullets. And what else do you see? Anybody see something behind the men? That's a bear. They shot a bear here. This is my grandfather, also whom I never met. And this is my father's younger brother, Uncle Freeman, and his older brother, Uncle Don. And they're in Sherbrooke, Quebec, where my father grew up. Notice how they're dressed to go out hunting in the wood, in the snow. It's because when you hunt, it's very vigorous and you sweat. If you're wearing, there's no such thing as a down parka back then. This was winter clothing. So. Then one more picture. This is kind of my mother's heroic photo. She and my stepfather were private pilots, and this was just before they crashed their plane. She survived a plane crash in Hickory, North Carolina, just 30 miles from where I was last week. They took off. They were visiting my mother's older sister, and down in Washington, D.C., and they stopped at Hickory to refuel and took off, and the engine blew up and coated the windshield with oil when they were about, 3,000 feet up. So my stepfather was flying without power, right, trying to dead reckoning, and my mother was on the radio, Mayday, Mayday. And they managed to land on a relatively flat plateau with a cliff of a mountain on one side and a ravine on the other. My stepfather threaded the needle, landed, and the wingtip caught a tree, and flipped. And they can't say they walked away, but they were wheeled away from it. My mother had bitten through her tongue because she was screaming and her head hit the dashboard. she broke her ankles because she had her feet under the pedals of the flaps of the plane. My stepfather cracked his ankle and hit his head, and that was all. And the good people of Hickory came out and rescued them, and that was all. So talk about blessings to survive a plane crash. Both, alive. And the next year they went back to Hickory to thank all the rescue people who saved them from what could have been the end, And it made the news in Hickory. It was headline news in Hickory, North Carolina. So the Yankees who came back to say thank you to the town that saved them. So anyway, that's the... my mother passed away very peacefully, surrounded by her family. And at 90, your body wears out. And stories, there are two stories that we tell. Probably will be the last two stories that we tell about her. One was that the thing that convinced me to leave the camp where I was and come up. Let's see. I'll just stand here. Was that my sister called, and turn them on, Alan. You can tell them on. The hospice nurse told my sister that my mother was in the... It's not doing it, is it? Maybe we need to change these batteries. The hospice nurse went into my mother's bedroom, in her own bed, where she had been flat on her back. And my mother was sitting up. And the nurse said, "Debbie, where are you going?" And my mother said, "Heaven," which was where she wanted to go. And so at that point, she lay back down and entered a different state. And the nurse said, "This is the final state." And so I heard that message and came up within 4 hours. I got a plane and made it. And we sang with her, and they said, "Hung Sure is here." And my mother opened her eyes and said, "Breakfast for him?" She said. To the end, right? Her only concern was feeding her children. That's mom. How about that? It's so humbling to think that, that her number one thought to the very end was not, "How am I doing? I'm dying." It was, maybe he's hungry. That's force. There's a pure force in that. So, but I have to say that knowing through communication from you here that this community was reciting from my mom Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, really made a big difference. And the messages that we got about what was going on here and the energy that you were sending up and the mindfulness of keeping my mother in mind really gave us courage. It's not nothing at all. It's very significant that when you don't know what to do next, you don't rehearse for the death of a parent. To hear that there's other people are putting their time and their life and their energy into well-being of your relative, that's a very wonderful message. And my sister Liz, who many of you know, just was astonished that our community thought so much of my mother that they would do what you all did. And so that's much appreciated. And I'm sure they say, "Gong bu tang juan," not a single bit of that effort is lost or wasted. It all goes to the right place. So that's the story. And I'll be leaving again on the 22nd and 23rd to go back for the final services. So you won't see me that week end, but that's where I'll be. So. All right. Yanlin, would you hit the screen button and send it up? Today, we're going to end right now. It's time to stop. Today we had think about an interesting way that a monastery serves. We did a wedding 2 days ago for Karina and Kevin, and that was a blessed event, and very sudden we decided at lunch to do it within the hour. And so if you all want to congratulate the new groom, he's over there. And Karina had to go back to be with someone who was dying. So then today we had a funeral, Doug Power's dad. So both Doug and my parents passed on within a few weeks of each other. And we had a Guqin recital this afternoon, which by all accounts was satisfying to the musicians and the organizers and the listeners. It was quite wonderful. David Wong is a skillful teacher and energized lots of people to come and study that rare form of string music in China called the Guqin and Guzheng. So then our Buddha recitation continued, and we're about to go up to CTTB to transmit the 42 hands and eyes, this Dharma of Guanyin Bodhisattva. So some of you, Jin Chuan-Shi, you're leaving tomorrow morning early, right? Okay, with Sam. So we're good for lunch. We're fine. No need to, everything is good. We'll just heat up what we got. So don't add any more. We're fine. And we'll be taking off. Then Marek will be here to hold the fort, and Darius will be here to support and to keep the doors open and the meditation, the censers warm with incense. And we'll be back then at the end of the week to continue. So quite a remarkable set of events in a short time. Yeah, Jinchuan. Okay, Ulambana. We have a table there next to David in the back, and that's because Ulambana is upon us. It is happening at CTTB right now when the lay community makes offerings to the Sangha for the next year. And we'll be setting up the tables tonight in the middle, and anybody who has already made offerings will put them on the table. And if people this week would like to, offerings up to you totally, we'll do the service next week, next Saturday. I'm going to sneeze here. So some of you wondered, excuse me, where were the tables? And it's because of today's events that we didn't have them up. But they'll go up tonight, and then they'll be here all week. Okay. Jin Chuan, anything else? No? All right. So, as they say, 识道之进，非道之退，在善而从，不善而改. If it's the Tao, advance. If it's not the Tao, retreat. Pick what's good, adopt it. Pick what's less good, and change it inside. We'll see you next week. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin Namo